He was a man who expected submission, but then he met a woman who broke all his rules, a woman of forbidden touches and unexpected defiance. The nation's most powerful CEO became a hostage to the one thing he could never control, his desire for her. And now he faced a choice: love her on her terms or lose everything he had fought to command. The sun was bleeding into the horizon when she stepped into the entrance of the five-star resort, a hidden gem nestled among the crimson cliffs of an exuberant southern European coast. The sea reflected shades of wine and gold, and the air carried the salty, provocative scent that only seaside luxury can offer. She wasn't there for a vacation, much less to be captivated by the view. She wore a raw linen pencil skirt, a fine silk blouse with a discreet neckline, and mid-height heels that suggested neither servitude nor arrogance. A small, genuine leather suitcase was the only sign she had come to stay. For how long? Not even she was certain, but her expression was unshakable. She knew she was entering the territory of powerful men and even more dangerous wills. Across the resort, in a spacious room with glass walls opening to the sea, Leon Ferraz was furious. "You left me without an assistant on an international trip, Alvaro. How did you let that happen?" His voice was low, but sharp as a blade. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Alvaro, his director of operations on the other end of the video call, took a deep breath. "Leon," her resignation was sudden. "The new hire has already been selected. She'll reach you tonight. An emergency replacement. She comes. Highly recommended." Leon snapped the laptop shut without replying. He was the kind of man who acted first and asked questions later. Dominant, meticulous, addicted to control. At 42, the CEO of the international investment network, Ferraz Holdings, knew the effect he had on people. Tall, broad-shouldered, his skin bronzed by the Tuscan sun. His dark eyes were impassive. A predator in tailored suits. He did not accept surprises. He despised improvisation. Until now. Just then, the resort manager's voice crackled over his radio. "Mr. Ferraz, the new assistant has arrived." He turned slowly, as if sensing a shift in the air. When he entered the main hall, he stopped. A woman stood, with her back to him, observing a modern stone sculpture carved into bold curves. "Name?" he asked, his voice low and dry, like contained thunder. She turned, slowly, as if she already knew who was there. "I was hired as your temporary assistant. My name is Aurora Vasques." His eyes locked on hers, not on her body, not yet. He was a man who read the gaze first, and hers was an affront. There was no submission in them, only a dangerous blend of disinterest and provocation. As if standing there, before the most powerful man in corporate Europe, meant nothing to her. Leon felt his heart beat faster. What was this? "I was expecting someone more submissive." He let the word slip out, a piece of calculated cruelty. "Then I apologize," she replied, her chin unyielding, "for disappointing you." Silence. He took a step forward. The sidelight accentuated the sharp angles of his face. There was something dangerous in the quiet way he watched her, as if deciding whether she was a threat or a challenge. "Do you even know what you're here to do?" he provoked, a cynical half-smile on his lips. "To make your life more efficient. Or perhaps less tedious. It all depends on how you treat me." That was enough. He walked past her without another word, gesturing with his hand for her to follow. Aurora walked behind him, catching his discreet, woody scent. It was an intoxicating aroma that mixed power with something indecently masculine. The resort seemed designed for a sensory war. Low-lit corridors, high-ceilinged suites, nude sculptures, and smoked mirrors. They entered a meeting room where everything was silence and sophistication. Leon threw himself into an armchair and pointed to the chair opposite him. "Sit. We're starting now." She didn't move. "I'd prefer not to sit until I have some basic information about what you expect from me." He arched an eyebrow. It was the first time anyone had dared to do that. "Do you know what you're doing?" "Being professional," she answered with a faint smile. Leon felt his stomach tighten. This was new. This was dangerous. And it was exciting. "Do you have any idea how many people I've fired for half of that attitude?" "I imagine quite a few," she said, walking to the window as if she feared nothing. "But I'm not here to be just another one. I'm here to show you that you need someone like me." And then, with the utmost naturalness, she turned her back to him and stood there, admiring the sea, as if he were just another man with an inflated ego. Leon closed his eyes for a second. It was absurd, reckless, and utterly irresistible. From that moment on, he knew this woman was going to strip him of his control, and he had no intention of stopping her. Aurora knew exactly what she was doing. From the moment she entered that corporate paradise scented with scandal, she understood she wasn't just dealing with a billionaire CEO. Leon Ferraz was no ordinary boss. He was the kind of man who molded the world to his desires and crushed anyone who dared to say no. And yet, she said it, not with direct words, but with every gesture. With the way she wasn't impressed by his tailored suit or the astronomical figures he generated in silent meetings. She said no when she didn't avert her eyes, when she left her blouse slightly unbuttoned at the collar like a challenge, when she moved just close enough for him to smell her skin without touching it. Leon noticed it the very next morning. She was waiting for him in the resort's panoramic restaurant, sitting alone at the farthest table, a cup of black coffee in her hands, and her legs crossed in a way that wasn't vulgar. It was unbearably provocative. Her slim-fit skirt, made of a fine fabric, rode up just a few millimeters more than was proper. He knew instantly. This woman was armed. "Good morning, Mr. Ferraz," she said, without standing. Her voice was as soft as velvet. "I see you're an early riser," he replied coldly. "One can learn a lot by observing your habits." She smiled and brought the cup to her lips far too slowly. Leon sat without another word. He ordered breakfast. She watched him from the corner of her eye. The silence between them was like electricity about to arc. Not a single wasted word, only sparks. "Today, we have a meeting with the Norwegian investors at 9. Then, lunch with the Swiss. In the afternoon, a review of the Asian contracts." "Clear your schedule," he ordered without looking at her. "Clear until when?" she asked, her tone a little too light. "All day, and maybe the night, too. Is that a problem?" Aurora's eyes smiled, but her mouth didn't. "None at all. As long as I know exactly what you expect of me after hours." He stared at her slowly, his fork stopping midway to his mouth. "Are you implying something?" I'm asking, Mr. Ferraz, what exactly do you expect from your assistant? He dropped his silverware. That she follows orders without testing me every minute. Then perhaps you've hired the wrong woman. And with that, she stood up, not in a hurry, with a sway of her hips that seemed rehearsed. Leon followed the movement, impassive on the outside, but inside, his blood was running hotter. Hours later, they were in the private conference room, with its sea view and soundproof walls. Aurora typed firmly on her laptop, taking notes, but she could feel his gaze on the back of her neck. When she turned to get a glass of water, she deliberately knocked some papers off the table. My apologies, she said, bending down to retrieve them. A slight arch in her back, making the line of her thigh visible beneath the light fabric of her skirt. Leon said nothing, but his hands clenched into fists on the arms of his chair. She was testing his limits, and he was a man who had none. Aurora, he called as soon as the meeting ended, his voice low but firm. Come to my suite tonight at 9. I have an important document I need to review with you, in person. She approached with soft steps, stopping before him. Too close, close enough for her perfume. Something between warm vanilla and soft pepper, to rise like a sensual poison to his nostrils. Is that a request or an order? Leon held her gaze for a few seconds, and the world around them ceased to exist. It's a warning. He rose slowly, the height difference between them stark, but Aurora didn't flinch. If you come, know that you won't be treated like an ordinary employee. I don't mix business with pleasure. But I'm not exactly an ordinary assistant, am I? No, you're not, she replied, with an almost imperceptible smirk, and left the room without a backward glance. At 9 o'clock sharp, Aurora knocked on the door of the presidential suite. She wore a simple, elegant, and dangerously feminine black sheath dress that fell to her knees. Her hair was down in long waves, her makeup subtle, but with an extra touch of intensity in her eyes. Leon opened the door wearing only a white shirt, unbuttoned at the top, and tailored trousers. The room was in near darkness, lit only by the recessed lights behind the enormous bed. Come in. She entered without hesitation. He pointed to a folder on the table. Here's the contract I want you to review. But first, he approached slowly, moving behind her. His fingers brushed lightly against the side of her arm. The tension was palpable. I want you to tell me why you accepted this job so quickly. With your resume, you could be working for any multinational. Why did you end up here? She turned, and they were face to face. His breath caressed her neck. Because I knew I would find something here that doesn't exist anywhere else. A man who thinks he can control everything. And I wanted to see how far he would go when he finds someone who challenges him. Silence. He traced a finger along her jawline, slowly, deliberately. Be careful, Aurora. You're playing a dangerous game, and you're about to lose. For a moment, he pulled her in by the waist, his grip firm, as if to assert his dominance. Their bodies almost touched. She didn't retreat. Instead, she leaned in slightly, her lips inches from his. If you want to send me away, this is your chance. Otherwise, I'm going to start on this contract, and I might not stop there. Leon clenched his jaw. He wanted to take her right there, against that table, but a part of him still fought for control. You have 30 minutes to review everything. Then we'll talk again. She walked to the table, sat down gracefully, crossed her legs, and began to read as if nothing had happened. But he knew. Every one of her gestures was a blow, and he, a man who never fell in love, was beginning to yield, not out of weakness, but out of pure obsession. The following morning dawned heavy and humid, the sky smothered by thick clouds that promised a storm over the azure sea. Aurora woke to a simple text message on her phone, sent at 6 a.m. Be ready to leave. We depart at 7. Pack light. It was signed Leon. No explanation, no destination, just a command. She smiled. It was exactly the kind of move he would make. Unpredictable, authoritarian, intriguing. She dressed in slim-fitting light linen trousers and a thin, strapped top that left her shoulders bare, pulling her hair into a casual bun. She wore no perfume. She didn't need it. At 7 sharp, a speedboat was waiting for them at the resort's private pier. Leon was already there, standing with his hands in the pockets of his black trousers, a linen shirt unbuttoned at the collar, and dark sunglasses hiding his expression. When he saw her, he said nothing. He just watched her, as if she were a rare piece at a private auction. She stepped aboard with the grace of a woman who knows she is desired. Are you going to tell me where we're going? She asked, sitting beside him. We're visiting the Foundation's headquarters on the archipelago. I need to review a multi-million-dollar donation proposal. International partners will be meeting me, and you will be introduced as my personal advisor. Just an advisor. He turned his head slowly, lowering his sunglasses to meet her gaze, without any barrier. That depends on the answer you still haven't given me. Aurora held his gaze for 2 seconds. Then she said, I accept. Your rules, your game. But don't forget that every king needs a queen worthy of his throne. I will not be a shadow. His silence was more eloquent than any speech. The speedboat cut through the sea, the wind whipping through her hair. When they arrived at the island, Aurora was speechless. The scene was almost cinematic, a white, minimalist mansion with a panoramic view of the ocean. It had internal gardens, stone sculptures, and silent corridors. Everything controlled, everything impeccable, just like him. As soon as they entered the private wing of the house, Leon led her to her own suite. It was spacious and airy, with a direct view of the sea. But she barely had time to set her suitcase on the bed. Change, he commanded. Dinner will be served on the terrace, and I want you dressed for me. Aurora crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. Any recommendations? He drew closer. He picked up a black box resting on an armchair and placed it in her hands. Wear this. She opened it. It was a deep red dress, crafted from a light fabric that felt almost liquid to the touch. It had a plunging neckline and daring slits. Pure provocation. You know exactly what you're doing, don't you? She always had. At 9 o'clock, she appeared on the terrace, a dress clinging to her body, her hair undone, and her red lipstick a slash of crimson thread. Leon was standing by the table, set for 2, lit only by candles. The sound of the sea below created a perfect, primal soundtrack. You're late, he said, his voice lower than usual. I was deciding whether to come. I had to be sure you were worth breaking so many rules for. He didn't answer. He simply pulled out her chair. Dinner began in silence. Fine wine, light dishes, the brief touch of hands, a lingering gaze. No real conversation. Then, halfway through the second course, Leon rose, walked over to her, and removed the napkin from her lap with the calm of a predator. "Stand up," he commanded. She obeyed. He led her to the edge of the terrace. The sea below roared, as if it were an accomplice. Then, without warning, he gripped her waist, pressing his body against hers from behind, his mouth grazing her neck as he spoke. "Do you know what you've done to me, Aurora? Since you walked into that room, I haven't had a single clean thought. I am a man who controls everything, but you have made me lose sleep with filthy ideas." She tilted her head, offering her neck without a word. "Tell me you're ready," he murmured. "I'm ready," she whispered back, "but only on your terms." Leon spun her around to face him. His eyes were like embers, and then he kissed her. It was nothing gentle, nothing polite. It was a demanding, hungry kiss that said everything that had been trapped in the silence. His hands explored her body with authority, marking his territory, and instead of resisting, she surrendered with the same raw hunger. The tension exploded into desire. The table was forgotten. The dress fell to the floor like a discarded thought. And there, under the dark sky and flickering candles, he possessed her like a man who had waited far too long and would wait no more. The night was long. When the sun began to rise, painting the sea in shades of gold, Aurora was lying in his bed, her body exhausted, her gaze lost on the ceiling. She had crossed a line, and now there was no turning back. The sun had not yet fully risen when Aurora awoke, not to the light or any sound, but to a touch. Leon was there, sitting beside the bed, his naked body covered only by a sheet draped casually over his waist. He was watching her, studying her like a newly discovered masterpiece, not with tenderness, but with a possessive admiration. His gaze said it all. She was his now, and he did not share what was his. "Do you always wake up to admire your conquests?" she murmured, turning on her side, her hair a mess, her voice still rough with sleep. "Only when I think they might run," he replied, his eyes never leaving hers. She let out a soft laugh. There was no hiding the pleasure. Her body still burned. The memory of the previous night was a series of flashes, firm hands, deep kisses, whispered commands, and the exact moment she realized she wasn't just getting involved with a man, but surrendering to an addiction. "I don't run, Leon. I choose to stay as long as it's interesting." He leaned over her, pinning her wrists above her head, not with force, but with intent. His mouth hovered dangerously close to hers. "Then you'd better prepare to never leave my life, because you are mine now, Aurora, and I don't share." She met his serious gaze. The heat she felt was no longer just physical. It was a psychological web, a luxurious prison he was weaving around her. "I'm not a jewel for you to lock away in a box," she whispered. "No, you're an addiction I intend to keep very close, where I can control you, where I can have a taste every single day." The way he said it left no room for doubt. Leon Ferraz was caught, not like a man in love, but like a predator who had found his one weakness and now needed to guard it at all costs. In the hours that followed, everything changed. He had her dress and clothes he'd chosen, light, suggestive dresses, heels that shaped her walk, discreet jewels that marked her as his. As they left the mansion for a meeting with international partners, his hand rested low on her back, a subtle but clear statement of ownership. The other men noticed. So did she. During the presentation, Aurora said little, but she observed everything. Leon was impeccable, as always. Dominant posture, curt sentences, a commanding gaze. But something was different. Between statements, his eyes would flick back to her with an unnerving frequency, a kind of silent surveillance. After the meeting, she was speaking with a Scandinavian investor, a polite, charming young man, when Leon suddenly appeared between them. He placed his hand firmly on her waist, as if to say, "She's busy." "Aurora, I need you in the archive room. Now," he said, cutting through their conversation. She gave the investor an apologetic smile and followed Leon without a word. The moment they were alone in the room, he locked the door. "Are you testing my limits?" he asked, his voice low. "I'm doing my job," she said calmly. "With that fool." She crossed her arms. "Are you jealous?" He advanced on her, backing her against a bookshelf. "I'm being realistic. You are mine now, and I will not tolerate public provocations." He trapped her there, her wrists pinned, her breath catching in her throat. "Is that a promise or a threat?" "It's a fact," he answered. "You accepted my rules. Now you will live by them." He released her wrists slowly, but his gaze remained locked on hers, as if trying to brand her soul, not just her skin. She could feel the weight of his intensity like an invisible chain. She was bound to him in a way she had never imagined allowing. That day, there were no more meetings, no more contracts. Leon canceled everything. He said he needed silence, isolation, time with her. And Aurora, who had always been free, felt for the first time what it was like to be under the constant watch of a man who accepted no distractions. He spent the day with her, not as an attentive lover, but as if he were studying her, trying to decipher her, to predict her every move, to anticipate her limits so he could break them one by one. That afternoon, as she sunbathed by the pool, she felt the heat of his gaze before she even opened her eyes. Leon stood in the shade, his shirt unbuttoned, holding a glass of water, just watching. "Do you have a problem with being watched?" he asked when she acknowledged him. "I have a problem with being controlled." He approached slowly, sitting beside her and tracing a finger along her bare thigh. "Control is a form of care. Control is a form of possession." "And what's wrong," he murmured, "with wanting to possess what fascinates me?" She turned her face to him. Her dark eyes held no fear, only a deep, simmering challenge. "Nothing. As long as you understand that I am a possession that chooses to be kept. The moment I feel chained, I'll disappear." He leaned in and bit her chin gently. "You won't disappear. I'll make you want to stay." That night, she didn't sleep in her own suite. He led her to his bed, not with violence, but with command. Their lovemaking was different, slower, more tense, as if every touch were a silent negotiation between desire and power. But at dawn, something shifted. He left for a business call, locking himself in a glass-walled office for hours. Alone, Aurora decided to explore the island. She walked to a high point on the cliffs where the sea crashed violently against the rocks. The strong wind whipped against her body. It felt like breathing freedom again. And in that solitary moment, she realized something. There was pleasure in the surrender, yes, but there was a risk she wasn't sure she was willing to take. When she returned, she found Leon waiting in the mansion's corridor. He did not look pleased. "Where were you?" "Walking, getting some air," she answered casually. "And why didn't you tell me?" "Because I am not your prisoner." The silence between them grew thick, like a wall. He took 2 steps forward and touched her face, but the gesture was taut with tension. "Never disappear again without telling me. I want to know where you are, always. And if you can't accept that..." He stared at her, unblinking. "Then last night was just a mistake." The words hit her. She took a deep breath. "An unforgettable mistake," she said, and left him standing alone in the hallway, walking away without a backward glance. But inside, she was trembling, because one part of her wanted to run, and the other wanted to be his completely. Aurora couldn't pinpoint when she started living in a state of constant alert. It was as if Leon had invaded not only her bed, but her thoughts, her schedule, her very space. He didn't ask, he determined. He didn't suggest, he ordered. And strangely, it made her feel more alive than any freedom she had ever known. The trip to the island was supposed to last 2 days. Leon extended it indefinitely. He claimed he needed more time to handle local matters, but the truth was clear. He didn't want to let her out of his sight. And Aurora, who had always controlled her own destiny, now found herself watching the door every time he left, waiting for the next move, the next command. The next attack came on a sweltering afternoon, after a tense video conference with Swedish partners. She was typing reports on her laptop, seated on an internal veranda, when Leon appeared behind her, silent as ever. He wore only a tight black t-shirt and linen trousers. His eyes were ravenous. "Stand up," he said, his voice clipped. "Now?" She turned, confused. "I'm in the middle of..." "I said, stand up." She closed the laptop without another word, a shiver running down her spine at his tone. He pulled her firmly by the hand, leading her down a narrow corridor to an old subterranean area. The air was cool and damp, the space silent. Stone walls, low lighting, and the scent of aged wood and wine filled the air. "Leon, what are we doing down here?" He locked the door behind them. "You've been thinking too much lately. You need a distraction." Without another word, he pressed her against the cold stone wall. His hands pinned her wrists above her head. His mouth came down on hers, hot, urgent, and famished. The contrast between the cold stone and the heat of his body was dizzying. Aurora tried to resist for a second, but it was already too late. He kissed her senseless. His hand slid down her body with an indecent precision, pushing her skirt up. There was no time to think. There, among rare wines and the muffled sounds of their own desire, he took her with a raw, focused force, as if to prove once again that she was his, only his. When it was over, she was leaning against the wall, panting. Her head hung low. "That was insane," she said, her voice weak, but her eyes were shining. He smiled, resting his forehead against hers. "I like places no one else dares to touch. And you..." you taste of something forbidden. From that day on, unconventional places became their obsession. The mansion's elevator, underneath the service staircase, behind the half-open door of a meeting room, on the private jet, minutes before takeoff. Every location was a new game, every risk a new flame. And with each one, Aurora became more ensnared, not by chains, but by the addiction of being wanted in such a way, by the pleasure of belonging to someone who saw no limits and pulled her into his madness. But it wasn't all ecstasy. Leon's control became less subtle. He started checking her messages. He forbade her from using social media during the trip. He disliked seeing her alone in the hallways. He wanted to know where, with whom, and why. And Aurora began to feel the weight of his obsession. One quiet night, after another session of dark pleasure, she confronted him. Lying in bed, naked amidst the tangled sheets, she watched him. "You don't just want me, Leon. You're caging me." He turned on his side, his body still slick with sweat, and touched her face with his warm fingers. "Don't be dramatic. I'm taking care of what's mine. I'm your assistant, not your property. Don't provoke me, Aurora. And if I want to leave?" His eyes darkened. And there, in the silence, she saw the warning. "If you leave, I will bring you back." Aurora turned away, her heart pounding. It was too late to run, and far too soon to know if this was love or merely obsession disguised as desire. At noon, she appeared in the mansion's main hall with a firm, almost glacial posture. She wore white, as if declaring war with elegance. Her loose hair fell in calm waves over her shoulders. Her face was bare, no makeup, revealing the raw beauty of a woman who had spent the entire night awake, thinking. But her eyes were on fire. Leon was seated at the long, dark wood table, drinking coffee without any hurry, surrounded by a dangerous quiet. When he saw her, he raised his eyes over the rim of his cup. He watched her every step, her every movement, like a predator sensing a change in the air. "I thought," he said, his voice low and precise as always, "you decided to keep hiding." "I'm not hiding, Leon," she answered, her gaze unwavering. "I was deciding if I still wanted to be here." He studied her then, his focus sharpening. Something had shifted, something beyond his control. Did something happen? Yes, something did. Her tone was so direct, the very air in the room seemed to chill. "I realized I'm losing myself. Since I met you, I've been erasing parts of who I am. I didn't see it at first. The seduction blinded me. The way you touch me, the way you command, it was all a hypnosis." She stopped before him, her posture resolute. Her white dress caught the sunlight pouring through the large windows, creating an almost celestial vision. But her eyes burned with the fire of sin. "Now," she continued, "I no longer know what is my desire and what is your control. You surround me, Leon. You possess me. And in doing so, you silence me. And the worst part is, I let you." Leon rose slowly. The movement was restrained, like a man suppressing a wave of fury. The light gray shirt strained against his powerful frame, the rolled-up sleeves revealing arms corded with tension. His face was a mask of stone, but his dark eyes were a simmering storm. I told you who I was from the very beginning, he said, his voice low. You accepted it. You wanted it. I accepted a proposition. What you gave me was dominion. A gilded cage where pleasure is constant, yes, but the price is my identity. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest, she countered, her voice firm. I am a whole woman. I have desires, boundaries, a need for my own air to breathe, and you are reducing me to a body you crave. And watch. He moved closer, his breathing quickening. His eyes were a hurricane, about to break. I don't watch. I protect. You control. Because I have to. Because you throw me off my axis. And if I lose control of you, Aurora, I lose everything. She took a deep breath, looking into his eyes as if trying to see the bottom of the abyss within them. Then perhaps you need to lose me. He framed her face with his hands, the grip firm, possessive. But he didn't kiss her. Instead, he pressed his forehead to hers, their breaths mingling in a silent plea for her to stay. Tell me what you want, Aurora. Now, no more games. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat. When she opened them, they glistened with unshed tears, but also with strength. I want to be yours, but not like this. I want to be yours and still be me. I want you to desire me without caging me. I want you to love me, if that is what this is, without suffocating me. He released her slowly, like a man letting go of something he doesn't know how to hold. I don't know how to love like that. Then learn, or lose me. She took a single step back. His eyes, darker than ever, were fixed on her like blades. Are you giving me an ultimatum? I'm giving you a chance. The last one. She turned, walked 3 steps toward the door, and paused. Meet me in the room at 10 o'clock, and come to me as a man who desires a woman, not an owner claiming his property. And if I don't come, then it's over. And she left, leaving behind the most powerful man she had ever known, standing on the brink of emotional ruin. 10 o'clock. Aurora stood before the suite's window, gazing at the sea that seemed to breathe in rhythm with her. The black dress clung to her body like liquid night, revealing the smooth expanse of her bare back and her tense shoulders. The room was cast in low light. The sweet, heavy scent of incense curled through the air, and the distant sound of the waves filled the silence with a sense of foreboding. She didn't know if he would come, and for the first time, that uncertainty didn't paralyze her. The woman who had walked into this arrangement weeks ago was strong, but still unsure of her own power. The woman waiting now was someone else entirely. Leon hadn't answered her. No knock on the door, no attempt to control the situation. He had vanished for the entire day. No demands, no surveillance, only silence. And in the exact second she turned, ready to accept her own freedom and walk away, the door opened. Without haste, without a sound, he entered, dressed in black. A linen shirt, unbuttoned at the chest, trousers that fit him perfectly. His feet were bare. His hair was slightly disheveled. His expression was serious, but something in him was different. His eyes still held their fire, but it was a different flame now, softer, more contained. For the first time, he looked vulnerable. I thought you wouldn't come, she said, her voice steady. She didn't move. I almost didn't, he replied, his voice lower than she had ever heard it. But not from pride, from fear. She tilted her chin, confused. Fear of what? Of not being able to be what you need, of trying and failing. Aurora walked to the edge of the bed, facing him. Only a few feet of space separated them. And you decided to try? Leon closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he took one step forward, then another, until he stood directly before her. Then, without a word, he fell to his knees. Aurora's breath caught in her throat. I have never knelt for anyone, Aurora, he said, his voice raw. Never. Not for love. Not for guilt. Not for pleasure. But tonight, I kneel for you. She felt her heart burst in her chest. Why? Because you are the only woman who has ever made me want to be a better man. Not for vanity, but because if I don't learn to love you your way, I will lose you. And I don't know if I can survive that. She sank to her knees to meet him, both of them stripped of their armor, equals, for the very first time. Aurora lifted her hands to his face, and he closed his eyes as if her touch were a sacred rite. Then she whispered, You don't have to possess me, Leon. You just have to choose me, every day, without erasing me. He pulled her into a kiss that was neither urgent nor ravenous. It was deep and sweet, a soulful apology. And there, on the cold floor of that luxurious room, they undressed each other. Not just of clothes, but of fears. Their coming together was different. There was no dominance, no rush, only pleasure born of partnership. Skin against soul. Their voices, broken with desire, were guided by something deeper. Connection. Hours later, lying side by side, still breathless, Leon turned his face to her. Tomorrow, we're leaving, but when you return to your world, you will no longer be my assistant. You will be my partner. She smiled. I'll only accept if I have my freedom. You will have everything, he said, his eyes locked on hers. Freedom, space, and my love. But know this, Aurora, even free, you will always be mine. She laughed, pulling the sheet over them both. And you will be the only man I ever allowed to master me, because I chose it. Silence settled between them. And then, as if sealing an invisible pact, they drifted to sleep. Not as boss and employee, not as predator and prey, but as two people addicted to one another, who had finally learned how to save each other.